Hello and welcome to my very messy but very pretty desk. I'm going to show you how to transform this pile of scraps into a pretty neutral coloured snippet roll. Because I want to walk you through the whole process and I don't want to skimp on any information, and at the end I want to show you how I use the snippet roll in my projects. I'm going to split the video into two parts. The first part showing you how I make the snippet roll, and the second part how I decorate the snippet roll. So come with me and let's see what we can make. The first thing we need to do is decide what we're going to use as a base for our snippet roll. Because this is going to be made entirely from fabric and I'm going to be stitching on it, I'm going to use fabric for the base. This is what I used for the last fabric snippet roll, this organza ribbon, and I have several choices of this thin organza ribbon that I could use. This one's got some glitter on it. I like to use thin fabric because obviously stitching through it is easier if you use a thin backing. This is a thicker ribbon, but it's quite nice as well. But I think for this one I'm going to use a strip of old sheet. It's very thin, but I quite like the frayed edge. It won't show very much, but on the pieces that show, I think it will look nice to have this frayed edge rather than a solid edge. If you are using ribbon, like this one has got a wire in it. I don't know if you can see that. It's a wired ribbon and you can just grab the wire and pull it out. So then there's no wire in there, so when you're stitching you won't run into the metal. So I've already torn my piece of sheet. It's about 5 foot long, just over. I'm not sure if I'll use all of that, but that's what I've torn for now. I'm sure most of you already know how to tear a piece of sheet, but you may, if you haven't done it before, you may be put off thinking it won't be straight or I can't cut it straight. You don't have to cut it, so all you need to do is take your sheet and do a little snip at the width that you want the sheet to be. So we're going to go roughly 2 inches on this one. Do just a little snip like that. You see there, and then snip. It's so easy and it will be straight. So we'll just do that again. So don't be put off if you've not done it before. It is so simple. Just snip it and rip it. There we go. Something to bear in mind when you're choosing what you're going to use as the base for your snippet roll is that on the most part it won't be visible from the front, but on my snippet roll, as I said earlier, part of the edge will probably be visible in some places, but also if you're using lace, as I am, in some parts the backing may show through the lace. So as you can see here, if I was to put that piece on there, you'd see a bit of the backing and this piece here. So if you're using lace, just bear in mind bits may show through the backing. And if I was using this one, you can see it changes the look of the snippet roll a fair bit when you can see the backing through it. So here, the glittery one, you'd see little bits of sparkle through the lace, which is nice, but it depends what sort of look you're looking for. I'm just going for this plain backing. I think that looks quite nice. It's just something else to bear in mind when you're choosing what you're going to use. But on the most part, as I said, it won't really show. And if you're using solid fabrics, to make your snippet roll, then it won't show at all really. Once you've decided what you're going to use as a base for your snippet roll, you'll need to gather together some scraps to attach to it. In my previous video I show the scraps that I've chosen, but just in case you haven't seen that, I'll just give a quick run through of what I'm using. So I've got a whole variety of fabric scraps, all different thicknesses, and as you can see, different neutral shades. So I've got thin fabrics, so some silk here and some thin cotton, and then I've got thicker fabrics, so upholstery fabric here, and I've got some velvet, lots of variety. I've also got lots of ribbons in different neutral shades, and of course plenty of lace scraps. If you look at my previous video, you'll see how I expanded the amount of pieces that I've got to use by dyeing them in tea. So have a look at that if you haven't seen it. But these are the scraps that I'm going to use on my snippet roll. So let's get started. As well as your snippet roll base and your variety of scraps, you're going to need a pair of scissors to trim your scraps and some glue. I'm using a glue stick because I just need it tacked down temporarily until I stitch it. But if you're not using a sewing machine, you'll need to use a stronger glue, a permanent fabric glue, so something like Fabri-Tac. But for this I'm just using a glue stick, so something that will just hold it temporarily until I stitch it. So let's start sticking some fabric down. I like to start with a piece of lace on the end, so I'll just hold a few different pieces up and decide what piece I'm going to use. I quite like that. I'm not going to use that, I'll show you why in a minute. Yeah, I think I'll go with this piece. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on it, not very much at all, just enough to hold it down until I stitch it. There, just like that. Now the reason I didn't use this piece is because some laces have this band on them. I think it's because it's slightly gathered, so it's kind of holding it together in a slight gather. I don't want that piece on there, so I need to remove it carefully. I don't want to rip the lace, so I'll just go along and take off that strip, and then I'll be able to use that on my snippet roll and it'll sit flatter. You quite often get that on, I think it's called broderie anglaise, is it? I have a piece here somewhere. There. Here, so you can see it's got a strip along it, and I just tear that off. There, and then that will sit nice and flat on the snippet roll. So now I'm just going to randomly pick up pieces from the pile and glue them into place. I'm just sticking them down anyhow, really. I don't want them totally square with the roll. I want them to be a little bit higgledy-piggledy. I think it looks nicer when they're not all in a straight line. And as you can see, I've got some frayed edges. can use small pieces, just anything you've got really. And the more random it is, the better it looks, I think. I might fray this one a little bit more. I quite like that bit there. So I'm not even going to line up the edges, I'm going to leave them a bit jaggedy as well. Sorry if I went off camera there. I'm trying to stay on camera. So I'm just laying pieces down and seeing what looks nice really. But anything goes. I think anything you do, it will look nice in the end. And the more random it is, the better. So just go along, keep sticking pieces down. And the main aim is to get a variety of textures, not colours in this case, obviously, because they're all neutral, but if you're making a coloured one, then a variety of colours as well. But I've decided to opt for a neutral snippet roll. I think it will look lovely. So I'm going to continue sticking on pieces along the roll, and then when I've finished all the way to the end, well, you don't even have to wait until we're all the way to the end, but I will do a line of machine stitching to hold everything in place. So just hold pieces up and see if I like them. I usually do, because really with something like this, anything looks nice, I think. As long as you vary the textures, and in this case the different shades. Oh. Yeah, see, I think that looks quite nice there. You don't need to worry about filling all the gaps, because once we've finished sticking on all these pieces and then stitching it with the machine to hold it all down, we're going to embellish it with some stitching. So bits like this, can you see here where there's a gap? It doesn't matter, because I can stick something, maybe a flower or a button or something, will cover up those pieces, those little gaps, so you don't need to worry. Just get pieces stuck down and don't worry about what it looks like, because I think in the end it's going to look lovely. Quite like that there. So I'm going to make it sort of a Crazy Quilt style, as I did with my other snippet roll. So I'll be sticking all these pieces down, and then as I said, do some machine stitching to hold it all in place, and then I will do some slow stitching along the joins of the fabric, just as you would in a Crazy Quilt. I've got so many fabrics to pick from, I can't decide what to use. I absolutely love this fabric. If you saw my previous video, I know I've already said that, but do go and have a look if you haven't seen it, because I have tea dyed this piece of fabric. So it used to look like this, and then I've dunked it in some tea to change the colour. There, I think that looks lovely. Right, give that a snip there. So you can see you just, the more random the better. And if you don't like frayed edges, then you can just cut these straight and have a nice, or you can stick them down first and then trim along it to straighten them up. But I actually really like it with the frayed edge. That's why I opted for the cotton sheet backing. So that there's the frayed edge. You can see here, you can still see the frayed edge. Yeah, so I'll continue going along, just picking up different pieces and sticking them down. It will take quite a while, but it's really enjoyable. It's quite meditative, really, very relaxing. And the nice thing is you actually can't do it wrong. There isn't a right way to do it. So you can just do whatever takes your fancy, and I'm sure it will look lovely in the end. So I'll just continue doing that, and then when I've got further along the strip, I'll come back and show you what I've done. Oh, just rip that piece off. There we go, just let that dry. I've added quite a few more pieces, so I'll just quickly take you through that. Don't want to make you feel dizzy pulling this too fast, but I've stopped down quite a few bits. I've still got a little way to go, but I'm trying to stick down pieces that contrast to each other to make it interesting, because it's all neutral shades. It's the textures that create the interest, I think. So you see here we have very fine lace, and then here is quite a heavy lace, and then here I love the contrast here where we have some velvet and some real silk, and these look really rich and wouldn't look out of place in a palace. And next to them I have these pieces here which are quite rustic looking and wouldn't look out of place in a farmhouse. So that's how you create interest on the snippet roll. So I've still got a few bits to add, and I just stick them down and then hold pieces up and tuck them under and then glue them. So I just go along, as I said, sort of auditioning pieces to see if they look nice in that position. I don't think I've got any patterned pieces yet. I think that might look nice there. So I might put that there. So I just lay them down first, like that. I need to fill in this gap up here. I really like this. It's a sort of corduroy, quite heavy upholstery fabric, I think. That looks nice there next to that piece of lace. So I just lay pieces down and then go back and stick them on. There we go. So I'll carry on doing that, and we're all almost ready for stitching. Not much longer. So here we are at the end of my torn strip of sheet. I've been carrying around these little fabric clusters that I've made, and doing a little bit of slow stitching on them, and I'm going to use one of those as the final piece on my snippet roll. So I'm going to stick that there. I'm going to add a last few bits just before I stitch it. You can see here I'm just going to add this little bit so it will hang off the end. So when I do my row of stitching across the bottom here, it will just hold that piece on, and I've got another piece further along here that I'm just going to stick onto here, and then I'll be doing the row of stitching to hold everything in place, and I'll come back and show you when I've done that. There, I've finished my machine stitching. So I've done a line of straight stitch across the top and the bottom of the snippet roll, and I've also done a line that meanders through the snippet roll. I think you can see it here. Just tacking in a few of the ends on the scraps to make it secure so that I can roll it up. So I'll roll this up now and take it with me when I go out to do a little bit of slow stitching on. I'm not very good at embroidery or machine stitching, and I'm sure if you're a seamstress you're absolutely cringing at the sight of this stitching, but it's what I can do and it does the job, and I think it looks beautiful in the end. You can see I've used two different colours of machine thread. I ran out of the cream. I'm always running out of thread because I buy my thread in the charity shop. Some rolls only have a small amount on it, but I don't think it matters that there's two colours. I think it just adds to the interest. So just use whatever you have, and I think it will look lovely. So we're coming to the end of this video. I'm trying to keep it concise and relevant, and I hope I've done that. And I hope you found this video enjoyable. I will come back and with video number 3, part 3, to show you my embellishments and slow stitching. So I'm going to go away and do more of this slow stitching in a Crazy Quilt style, and then I will come back in part 3 and show you how I add the stitching and the embellishments and how I use the snippet roll when it's finished. So in summary, if you try to remember to use your rich and regal fabrics against your shabby and raggy fabrics, just to add interest, then your snippet roll will turn out lovely. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.